And welcome back to another episode of Fret Buzz, the podcast, a weekly podcast where we pull back the veil on all the intricacies of music. Hi, my name is Aaron Sefchick. Together with my co-host, Joe McMurray, we talk about everything under this musician's umbrella. In past episodes of Fret Buzz, the podcast, we've hit everything from trademark and mastering, building acoustic guitars and touring, music scenes, public school music, FM radio, military bands, synths and sampling, concerts and festivals, modding your guitars and amps, fingerstyle music schools, classical guitar, recording and mixing, setup and maintenance. We've hit so many things, and we plan to hit so many more. I know we've got some pedal makers and some pickup makers for guitars. We've got a lot in store. If you do enjoy any of this material, head on over to any one of the social medias and hit that follow, subscribe button. And in addition, if you really enjoy Fret Buzz the podcast, head on over to Fret Buzz the podcast Patreon page and take a gander. As always, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us. And without further ado, let's jump into part 2 with Carter Gravatt from the band Carbon Leaf on Fret Buzz, the podcast. I was actually going to ask you about that in terms of your writing style and how that all goes down. I know Barry had talked about in a previous episode that he kind of works in these batches where he'll have you guys send in a bunch of stuff and maybe it may or not get used right away or even at all, but play with these ideas that you guys have kind of submitted for sometimes even years. But in terms of going through that process of writing, how does that all go down for you? What is your writing process and how do you come up with ideas? And especially when you have so much material under your belt already with the previous albums, do you try to go in a different direction or how does that all work for you?
Man, that's a great question. I just kind of do whatever, wherever kind of my mind is, just like whatever, instrument or whatever has kind of got my attention at the moment.
Mhm.
And fortunately, like you said, we've got hundreds of unfinished songs that Barry has to choose from.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole lot of material. And so I guess the only frustrating thing would be to not necessarily be too precious about anything because you might not ever hear it again.
Right.
But I just kind of will just write and I'll sit, and I'll just play everything, or whatever the song needs or in my mind, I'll just sit around and put down a drum beat and then, or typically I'll have a song structure in my head and then just start layering things around it. And sometimes that'll come back to bite me because, like maybe I'll write something on electric guitar, but what Barry will be gravitated towards is, this banjo thing that I did that was supposed to be in the background, but that'll all of a sudden come to the forefront and that'll be the thing the melody that he catches. And so a tune can evolve like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just kind of I guess because we have that backlog, I'm trying not to be too forceful about things. And because of, since there is so much stuff, I try not to submit things before I think that if I have the option, and before I think they're ready. Because if you leave out, like, if one part of it isn't really like catchy or like doesn't feel, feels forced in, like a pre-chorus or something like that. If there's just that one part that doesn't quite work, the whole tune could get, kicked out just because it's like, it doesn't feel like it's all there yet. So
Right.
You have to sell it.
Yeah, well, I try to wait until at least I feel like all of the things that I can control in it are, maybe this, little intro thing isn't quite right yet. And I'll just mess around with it sometimes for up to, like a year. I'll just have this these things that I'll just kind of chip away at, and then I'll be like, oh wait, all right, that's ready. Now I see how I want that to be. And then other stuff I'll just kind of, just kind of throw it together, because you need to be actively, sometimes you just need to force it through. You need to force yourself to write, because if you don't just push yourself to do it, then you can sit on your butt a little bit too much.
So are you writing throughout the year?
Yeah,
Barry had also mentioned that you guys do get together for like like a week retreat
yeah.
where you kind of get together and do stuff. So are you bringing things to the table, or are you guys, what does that process look like?
That so if we're all getting together, there'll be things that I will hold as a little too precious to me,
Yeah.
and I won't bring those in. But I'll try to have things that I have like a few parts for, or kind of the general idea for, and then you kind of put those out and see, how everybody reacts to it.
Mm.
Because once you put a drum beat to things, everything can change. Or a bass line, and so I'll kind of separate those two things. So I'll always have a half dozen things that I have kind of in my back pocket in case we get together for something that we can kind of mess around with.
Mm.
And then there'll also be the things that I definitely want to pursue on my own, just because like I was saying, you sometimes, if you force it, you'll compromise. Like if you have one good idea and you force it into a song, all of a sudden you're going to have 3 or 4 parts that are probably not going to be quite what you want, and you're going to have that one part in there that you really liked, and now that's kind of stuck in this this clump of music that it's kind of, you're like, all right, it's okay, but
Right.
I saved that one thing and kind of flushed it out on my own to see where it would have gone.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
And
But
then
it's fun to do both, because I wouldn't write really with electric guitar by myself, just because it's just never been, music's never works that way for me. Electric guitar by itself is a little too strident or something. I don't know. Like rocking out in my garage by myself with no drums and like, all right.
Right.
Every now and then I'll come up, but like stuff like that would be stuff that I would probably save to flush out with like all the guys.
And how, with the other guys throughout the year, how closely do you work with any of the other guys on ideas?
It really depends. Every year is different. Like the like landscape of what we have to do, recording wise, touring wise, rehearsals for tour. So it's just it's never the same.
Right.
The little pockets of different things will pop up when they do, but like as much as like Terry and I sitting down with guitars and trying to write something doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to, because I've got 2 kids, he's got 3. When we're home, it's like mayhem.
I know it. I know all about that.
Got 2 soccer games this afternoon. We had 2 yesterday. I've got yard work I need to do. Skate ramp in my backyard. It's just everybody's got, and his kids, man, I swear they're so awesome, and they're doing like 5 sports at any given time when we're doing like 1. We're just like, oh my gosh, you guys are crushing it. We feel, we like 2 soccer games. Our whole family is like kaput.
Yeah.
And they were still going. They had like probably 3 soccer games. I think they were at the ice rink last night for a skating competition. And God,
Wow.
but we'll carve out times when we can do stuff together. But you have to be a little bit more strategic than when you're a kid, and you can kind of like, hey man, let's hang out, drink beer and write tunes.
Yeah.
Which is fun too.
Yeah. So when you're young, you really never know how precious your
time
is.
You can't tell somebody that's young that it's precious either, because they won't really get it.
No.
You don't know until you, what is it? Don't know what you got till it's
Let's
gone.
go. Yeah. So true. So
But
true.
man, it's so funny, and it is so true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we try to manage the time we have as well as we can, and you know, we'll get together. We'll try to get together when we can. Throughout the year as a group to do a little bit of writing. But with Jesse in Boston, we've got to fly him down for that sort of stuff.
He's your drummer, right?
Yeah, and that's also really fun. When we get together like that, and just kind of, we did. I think we got it. Maybe it was last October that we got together for a week and did some writing, and we might have done it earlier this year. I can't remember. But yeah, it's always fun. And some of that stuff, if you don't go in with any real tunes, or I'll wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and come up with a couple of different things before I go in, and then we'll just kind of see what happens. And you can end up with some really neat stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Stuff that you've never come up with on your own, and that's always kind of fun too.
Yeah, just kind of let it happen organically.
Pretty much, and sometimes it can be an enormous noodle fest that lasts all day, and you're just like, man, we did not get out of that, but we did have a good time, But anytime like that, when you can play together as a group, is also good, because obviously you play jazz and stuff like that, so improving is something you need to practice. Especially when you're trying to improvise as a group. A lot of the open solo sections live are pretty much improvised. So, just practicing listening to everybody and kind of everybody reading where things are going and stuff like that.
Well, that's just part of it. I think that it's important, even if you don't get the chance to play with your fellow band members all that often. I think that even taking an amount of time and just allowing for that noodle fest, or just to kind of feel off of each other and kind of get back into that groove as the band, and how to read each other. I think that's kind of important.
It's incredibly important. That's the part that makes live shows like the most fun, is having that chemistry where, really cool stuff and really cool subtle stuff is happening, whether people notice it or not. Like there's, for the people that are listening for that stuff, there's stuff to listen to. And for people that are, backed up and listening to the big picture, there's good stuff to listen to. But yeah, you're right. It's really important to keep up that, the cohesion and the chemistry from, playing and listening and knowing, whichever way you turn, everybody's going to catch you.
Yeah.
That's really important for me. Just to like we were talking about, jumping from instrument to instrument, and then, okay, banjo, fiddle, mandolin, lap steel, blah, 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 blah. All right, now guitar solo. And you're just like, it's like, oh God. All right. Whew, let me catch my breath, and let me be creative here. All right. So that's where it gets, that's some of the tricky stuff too, is, all the jumping around, and then all of a sudden, all right, get serious. Now do something cool.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking at you like,
well,
what do I do?
It seems like a big part of this, when you're improvising live, a big part of it is energy flow as a unit, as a band. And, most, if you think of great guitar solos, they start out more melodic, which seems like that benefits you, switching an instrument. You have a little moment to get comfortable before you have to rip any sort of Eric Johnson licks that, speedy things. You want to start out melodic and build.
Yeah, but you gotta, in order to start off like that, melodic has to be in the pocket. And so you have to be relaxed, because you can't be relaxed and melodic if you're feeling frantic and you're just like, man, I was, woo, you gotta, so it's almost easier just to tear into something. That's like, honestly, for me, that would be the harder thing to do, is to take that deep breath, kick back, and be melodic and musical, as opposed to just continue to feed off of that manic energy and just rip into something. it's easier to play fast than it is to play slow. Because man, there's so much space. If you fill it up, no problem. It's full. If you have to leave it open, you have to be strategic. You have to have somewhere to go. It's got to make sense. It's got to feel good. That's the hardest part, is to, take a deep breath, get everything under control. Now breathe. Now play something musical.
Okay, so I have a question. In terms of when you are in this moment of playing something musical, and because of your background and you are a self-taught player and you've kind of come from studying all of these players by ear, and I guess my question is that when you're playing and you're coming up with ideas, are you and I don't mean this in any bad way.
No.
I'm kind of thinking about, for any of our listeners out there, because there are so many instructional videos out there, and you can learn from this guy and you can learn from this guy and take lessons from this guy. And I'm trying to think about, because your style is very unique and it's very you. I don't know how to explain it any more than that. So when you are up on stage and you're playing, are you taking into account any of the other things that people are doing, like thinking about any one of the other players, or is it just purely like you the whole way? And with that, I guess part B of the question would be, are your solos, are they pre-composed, or are most of the stuff that you do on stage improv?
It is pretty much all improv.
Okay.
There'll be cues that I'll play and a few solos to let everybody know, hey, we're transitioning to this part now. For instance, one of the big open ones would be "Let Your Troubles Roll By," and there's we'll get to a point where I will play something that will take us into the bridge section, which we all have to hit together, but it also sets up like a ramp for us to build up into that change. But that's not saying that will be particularly the crescendo of the solo. It'll just be how we transition out of it.
Yeah.
But everything up until I hit that would be improv. And that could be, you asked me where is, like, the way that our bass player John and Jesse, our drummer, the way that they started, that could trigger something different, or I could take it in a different direction. It always kind of starts with where they set it rhythmically, and sometimes it's in the past, it's just dropped out and it's just been me.
So you're purely thinking within the moment, and you're not necessarily thinking about anybody else in terms of influences or anything like that. You're just in the moment and taking inspiration from the players within the band and what's going on within the moment. And you're just, it's in the moment, your fingers are doing all the talking.
That's such a great question. And it's so hard to say. Because I'd need to be in there with the little gnomes and stuff that are running around.
Yeah.
But I would say that anything that comes up that's coming from an influence would be somehow derivative of how the guys have started. My hands are super clunky right now. But like, every now and then they'll drop it into like this, a little bit more of a funk thing. I would, can you hear that? Is that like super loud?
Oh, it's okay.
But they could drop it into something that sounds super funky, and it might make me want to do like, just something kind of, funky that would make people nod their head. That was something that would totally spontaneously happen because, and I have no idea what I was just. I mean, I haven't had enough coffee and I haven't played yet today. But it might inspire something like that, or it could end up being like a really, start off a little more gentle with like a. You know, you could start off with something just kind of.
That was beautiful.
You know,
a lot of like you were sliding around a lot of like double stop thirds and stuff. It sounds really nice.
See, that's where music gets me. I have no idea. I just know.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You're not thinking about any of that. You're just playing.
No, I'm just listening. I'm making the sounds that I want to hear in my head. Like I know what those things sound like, and I couldn't tell you what they were, but I know that I think there's a monk tune that's like. No. I think that might be where I heard that interval before, but yeah.
Those are those chromatic thirds that you're sliding down and up.
But yeah. Uh-oh. My daughter's here. Hey, Dave.
Hey.
I'm doing an interview. Would you like to come say hi?
Yeah, she should come.
Yeah.
This is my daughter, Sophie.
Hello.
And
Hey, Sophie.
Can I come see you in a little bit?
Okay.
Okay. Does Sophie play anything?
She was taking a guitar lesson yesterday.
Nice.
Very good.
I have soccer, and I have a soccer game today.
Oh yeah, I see your shirt. That's awesome. Well, good luck today.
Yeah.
I'll see you in a minute now. Love you. So that would be like the best way that I could, it just how it starts. And sometimes how it starts, if it starts and you trip, that's the worst. It's like recovering from like a bad start for me sometimes can be the roughest thing. You just have to stop for a second and then, back in. But, just any of those different, and that's just that one tune, but just however it starts will kind of dictate how it might unfold, but that's all kind of improvised.
That's cool.
But you're thinking like the other day, it seemed like you knew that you were playing like Mixolydian or you do. I mean, you understand all that.
Yeah. And I probably understand more than I'll ever let on, just because I'm a little reluctant, because I don't quite, I've never really gotten a hold of it. I've played a little jazz, but it's like, I got no business doing it. But it's still kind of fun. But it's one of those things we were talking about. It's like, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like, and playing over like complex chords and over changes is, and having something interesting to say, as opposed to like holding on like the cat, going down the side of the building, like scream, that's a whole nother thing.
There's a point.
I've got something of a handle on some of that stuff, but I couldn't tell you exactly what. if that makes any sense.
Right.
Like
it's definitely
of music theory.
When you're playing over jazz changes, I find like for a long period, at least for me, I was having to play. It is like you can visualize the block of a few measures that's 2-5-1 or you're in one key for a little period of time, and you can kind of play a lick in that key, and then you kind of like you start over on the next. When you change keys, you like play a new lick over that.
Yeah.
What gets really fun is when you start to be able to play a lick that crosses through that key change.
Yeah, that's when you start playing music as opposed to playing shapes.
Yeah.
You can definitely hear when people have come out of jazz school and they're, you've got that library of 2-5-1 licks that you're kind of stringing together through tunes.
But you
But
know what note's changing in the next chord, and you can continue playing the lick you were playing.
the interesting notes that are in that chord, and hearing somebody like Stern play, and you can hear him heading for a chord that's like 9 bars away.
Yeah.
But you know where it's going, and you're just like, oh my,
He does that over vamps. You'll hear him infer the chords and the cadences, even if it's just like a 2-5, an A minor 7 to a D7 over and over. He'll play like a lick that has that harmonic minor cadence to get you to the A minor. He does things it's just like amazing over a 2-5.
Yeah, and I love well, man, I mean, the amount of practicing that guy has done over the years would kill most people. But I love his writing too. Like, he consistently writes, I think, some of the best heads. Like everything he puts out will have like at least one tune. I'm like, ooh, I love that. I love the head to that one. There's that big neighborhood record he did. That tune he did with Medeski Martin Wood. I think it's called Check One. That's just that's a great head. Give and Take had some great ones on it. One-liners and that's like the second track, I think, was really great. But anyway, the first Stern record somebody gave me was Standards, and I was just like, oh dear Lord. Great Pacer is just like Mach 5. Just like, okay. Danny Gatton's got a great version of Well You Needn't on a record with a B3 player that's just murderously quick.
That's a Monk tune, right?
Yeah.
I have to listen to that one.
But yeah, it's so good. So good. But
I got to see Mike Stern in New York City over Christmas time.
how was it? At the 55?
It was at the Iridium.
Oh, really?
Kind of Midtown area. And he just it was wonderful. And then I got to talk to him afterwards, and it was just like, I was so happy.
He is like the sweetest dude too, man.
He is incredibly nice.
Just so monstrous. Do you know Adam Rogers?
No.
You got to check him out. He is spectacular. He's I think plays the Chris Potter a lot.
Okay.
He's got some his own solo stuff, and he put out a thing that's got Nate playing drums. I think it's called Dice or something like that. But he's a great guitar player, and he's one of the guys. I don't know. I feel like sometimes he can, like jazz guys playing anything else. It's a jazz guy playing something else, and like with him. I know what it is. Fork, the first Fork record, FORQ.
Oh.
There's a tune called Gravatt that starts it off, and he's on that record. But he's a great guitar player.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Adam Rogers. It's always such a wonderful thing when you find out about a new guitarist or musician in general that you've never heard of, and you listen, you're like, how did I make it the last 31 years or whatever? And I'm just hearing this.
I feel like it's so much better, easier now than when I was coming up and kind of being in this little, I've been in this band since I was 18. So, and I was coming from, a teeny little town, like an hour and a half from Richmond. So finding all of this stuff was pretty hard. Like, Barry and Terry hipped me to a ton of stuff I'd never heard, like the first Sun Volt record, the Uncle Tupelo stuff, the Pogues, which got me, from there I went to like the Bothy Band and Planksty and all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah, it's all who, people hipping you to stuff. That's how you find like the coolest stuff, like that accident with Barry and the Bela Fleck record. That was life-changing, and that was the right record at the right time.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding those people, when you find somebody like that you're just like, oh my, that's creatively like the best ever, when you just can dive in and you've got like this wealth of stuff that they've put out that you didn't even know was there, and all of a sudden you have like 10 records to listen to, and you're just completely overwhelmed with ideas and questions. And that stuff is, that's so great.
That was a big, when I first got into Eric Johnson, that was how I felt. I just my entire style of playing changed. And I was working on it so much that now my natural tendencies are Eric Johnson-y.
Oh, really?
Like, it used to be more like this kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, which shifted to this kind of, I was studying Paul Gilbert a lot, and it keeps changing based on who I get obsessed with. But right now, when I do things, I just spit out pentatonic fives and but I mix them with I try to mix them with jazzy things. And
that's the funny thing. So many people have dissected that now. And I never did.
But you've got the sound, which is part of why I like bringing him up.
I never thought about the five thing until somebody told me to check out this guy, Troy Grady.
Yeah. I got it.
He is gone so far down the rabbit hole, man. I think he's probably come out the other side. I've never had the patience or even thought to dissect things like that. But it was certainly the little stuff that I watched. It was just fascinating, and he's so enthusiastic about the whole thing, and it's really kind of infectious. You're like, wow, huh? But I'd never thought of that sort of thing and seen how he divided things up, and I still don't particularly pay attention, but I can hear it now in people's playing when people are dropping in a run like that. I'm like, oh, they're running that five thing. Because now that I heard him play it, now I hear it in a different way than I heard it more as a cohesive passages previously, as opposed to breaking it down into chunks. And I don't alternate pick. I mean, I don't do economy picking, which is, I think, what a lot of that stuff you have to do that in sweeping. I don't either, unless it's an accident. So the way that I incorporate that stuff is still, I would guess, if it's sounding that way, I'm still playing straight alternate picking, or I have somehow subconsciously thrown in a pull off, or I'm doing something different with my left hand as opposed to changing my right hand, because I'm probably too old to learn economy picking. I did a master class with Jimmy Bruno once, and that was the thing. It was like, well, that's all fair and good, but you need to, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna anytime soon. Oh man, it's like that, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so that's so interesting. So Barry came up to me and he was like, when were you influenced by Eric Johnson? And if you knew Barry and I, you would know that I would go, come again?
Not a normal question he'd ask you.
Yeah, it's just so random and out of the blue. I was like, what, I don't know. But I guess you had asked him or mentioned that to him. And so, yeah, do you have any questions about that stuff? Or
yeah, well,
I'm a little fuzzy on how I would have done that. But yeah,
to clear up the backstory there, when I saw you guys, for our listeners, when I saw you guys at in Virginia Beach, you were playing a guitar solo, and I was like, I heard Eric Johnson in your playing. I think it was, it was the spread, that root fifth, and then the high third up an octave, so it's a 10th. I heard those things. Can you do that? Yeah, I heard that stuff, and even in some of your lead lines, you're doing it's what you hear Eric Johnson doing, that sound. And so I was really excited because I love that sound. Doesn't matter who's doing it, it's just beautiful. And I asked Barry about it, and he must have reached out to you. But yeah, so those spread thirds you were showing me the other day. Do you want to show people that?
So the rhythm stuff, yeah, we were talking about that, and it was a great way if Terry was playing, just strumming a chord, and you don't want to strum, you're developing, it's like, all right, well, what do I do? If he's doing that, There's a song called Texas Stars that's on Love Lost Hope Repeat. And when we were in the studio, it was this really atmospheric tune. When I wrote the demo, when we got in the studio, the producer who produced like Rush and stuff like that was like, I'd like it, wanted it to rock a little more, believe it or not. And so I had to come up with something on the spot to play over it. So I came up with kind of this. So I was using something like that, which is probably pretty Eric Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to take a melody that was, super, super duper mellow. It was like let's see how to do it. So I took that and then converted that into the, that other thing. But that's probably Eric Johnson as I've gotten on the record. But yeah, those kind of, if Terry's strumming a C chord, throwing in some.
You're creating so much texture underneath a simple C chord.
But it moves things around a little bit, and it kind of creates a more neaterist kind of platform, and especially without keys or anything else kind of harmonically going on behind it. It's kind of trying to find a different way to kind of fill the space and have it be pretty and musical.
And you were just jumping around from different inversions of a C chord there, right?
That is all just C chord, just a regular C chords. That's a C with a third up top.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a G, F, G, F, to a C, second. So, but and that was partially me just kind of figuring out the fingerboard on my own as well. Just moving things around and figuring out where everything would stack up and kind of work out. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. What'd you say?
Did that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, it just shows the power of learning your inversions. That was it's beautiful playing.
But yeah, I don't know that I don't do a lot of pentatonic stuff. We were talking about that, and I think and some of that might be reactionary because when I was just learning, everybody was listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan and kind of doing that thing, and doing it better than I. Like Gib Droll was coming out of Virginia Beach, or had been. God, I used to see him when I was in high school, years before I had a guitar, and just like, oh. But everybody was doing that, and I was kind of like, well, what's over here? And I was also a big Peter Buck fan, so for me, like as far as I knew, like lead guitar ended with like the intro to Driver 8 or, you know, something like that. You know, God, what's a Feeling Gravity's Pull. You know, Peter Buck was like the guy for me. So it took me a while to get from, you know, thinking that that's, you know, that's like the pinnacle of lead guitar playing to going, actually there's quite a bit out here, huh? You know, getting the doors blown off when you see what else is out there. But yeah, so not a ton of pentatonic stuff. Probably a lot of Mixolydian stuff, I would imagine, because when it works, I'd use that flat 7. But I guess a little bit of everything, almost literally, because of like we were talking about, you know, some of the chromatic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not being warmed up, I'll just make a fool of myself. But like a. So sloppy, but you know, just kind of whatever is kind of just up in the kitchen sink, so I guess. But no, not a ton of like straight pentatonic stuff.
Yeah, you can see the Mixolydian, like you've got that major pentatonic box with the flat 7, but you're also doing those. You're walking those thirds down chromatically.
Yeah, probably. Let's see.
Got a great sound to it. There it is.
But yeah, you'd probably have a better idea of what it is than me. And what
it sounds good.
Another cup of coffee.
But like I said the other day, you've got a flow to your playing that I like.
Oh,
like, but I said this the other day too. But when I'm playing, I know I can pull off some like fast licks to get me from one place to another, and then I tend to like try to milk a spot and like be melodic in a kind of an area wherever I happen to land a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you tend to like, you can play a lot, like you can stay busy and kind of keep going, like it flows well.
Oh, I hope it sounds good.
Yeah,
sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all your fans would agree.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that really would have come from.
Probably because you sat around learning by yourself for so long.
Yeah, sat around watching like old horror movies and just noodling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was telling you, the guy that introduced me to Callahan, we were playing in Nashville one time, and he did this one chromatic thing that just kind of linked 2 different spots where he was on the fingerboard, and that was kind of what thing for me, and it opened up that probably a combination of that and this guitar player named David Greer, who is an acoustic player who I just, man, he's just fantastic.
He's like a more bluegrasser.
He is. You got to listen to him play, because all the stuff that he gets going on, it's like Joe Pass or something. I mean, you're just like, there's so much coming at you that it's just kind of mind blowing. And he can take the simplest melody and turn it into the most incredibly complex and cool thing. It's just remarkable. But learning, I'm pretty sure it was from him, but linking different parts of the fingerboard with open strings. Let's see. Let's see, what would be good? You know.
Wait. Wait a second. Are you playing the melody on the lower strings and hybrid picking the open B and E strings?
Fingers, but I'm also using a lot of open strings. So that creates, so you go from,
Oh.
so that adds like some real space between the intervals that you're using. And it's a, let's see. Just kind of thrown in. I don't know. It's hard. I don't really have like a specific example. I'm trying to figure out what I would be doing that I would use it. I use it a ton on acoustic guitar, but I also started using it on electric for some of those. And it kind of works to kind of move yourself around. You can do it. Let's see. But yeah, just find different ways to get kind of move yourself around a little bit, and throwing in those open strings, it kind of changes things up. I'm too lazy to go over and turn off the gain that's on there. It makes a lot more sense if the guitar's a little bit cleaner. But yeah, that and the chromatic stuff or interval stuff like a.
Oh, that's cool. For anybody who's listening, it's worth checking out the YouTube video to see what his hands are doing.
I have no idea, but yeah, little stuff like that, like little things that you'll pick up that you can kind of find ways to incorporate to make things like just work a little bit better. And that's, I guess, some of that stuff helped to kind of, all right, if I'm here, what kind of, say you're in G and you're playing it almost out of soloing kind of that D position. If you, I guess, what do they call it? The cage system.
Mm-hmm.
Did that, but I see it now when people are asking me what are you thinking there? I guess I was like, well, I guess you could look at it kind of like a D chord. But yeah, once you add in the, you've got all that, but then you have to. There's a lot of stuff in there, that you can use, but it's certainly got, it's harmonically really compact in a very, very small area. So you need to get out of there and spread something out
right
after or before it, just because otherwise it's like the Tasmanian devil running in a circle. But yeah, man.
Yeah, can we? There was a question I wanted to ask you earlier that I never got to, but going back to the songwriting idea or the songwriting, it's a big topic. But I've, in my period as a full-time musician, there's songs that I wrote early on that were like they were kind of like what I wanted to naturally play, and I got those songs out. And now when I'm writing, I try not to. It's like I don't want to do that again, even though I know I could write another song that's similar that would probably be better than the first one I wrote like that. But I just feel like it's too much of the same idea. So I always, whenever I sit down to write something, I'm trying to write something different, which makes it extremely difficult because I'm always trying to look for some, I want to put out something that sounds new. With you guys writing so many songs over so many years, I mean, are you trying to create something new, or are you trying to just create the best melody, even if it's got kind of a similar vibe to something, other
Absolutely.
things?
Absolutely that. Like if you do a better version of something that you've already done, then you have a better version of something you've already done. So you can kind of disregard the original. I mean, if you start doing that, you box yourself in so quickly with a lack of options that it's just I would think it would be creatively stifling. I've plagiarized myself more than anyone, but I think that would be detrimental to the creative process. Just it's like starting to have an idea and like whacking it down, before you've seen it through, and you don't know how it's going to turn out in the end. And maybe it's you end up with a song structure and lyrics or anything that are very divergent, and all you have to do is go back and change the guitar part, or maybe you can change one chord or whatever. But no, you should. I would never recommend self-editing in that kind of way. It's always good to be. I'm hypercritical of myself, and I'm my own worst critic. But at the same time, you got to balance that with creativity and what you might find pursuing. Never sideline an idea because you've used these changes before. I mean, good Lord, how many songs? There are only 12 notes. I mean, and how many songs have been written with a 1/4 and a 5 chord? Millions. It's all probably going to sound like something at this point, but man, always see it through, and follow every little chunk that you get. It's going to lead you somewhere cool, and if it doesn't, you can bookmark it for later and come back to it. But yeah, I don't think that's terribly healthy. It's good to be aware of, and always be aware of what you've done, and okay, well, that's kind of like this, or that's kind of like this, but don't ever. I wouldn't say it would be a good idea to just stonewall yourself, because you're going to build yourself a really small box pretty soon. Oh, that's the way it would seem to me. I'm sorry.
It's okay. But do you ever, when you're sitting down to write a song, do you ever decide like you want to get away from Mixolydian kind of sounds or whatever? Like, do you ever try to use something that sounds like you use Phrygian and you get that Spanish sound, or like try to get like that Egyptian sound, or I don't know, just different. You listen to guys like Joe Satriani, and he's like creating melodies with that sharp 4 to get that Lydian sound. And a lot of times I gravitate towards that because I feel like there's something that I can find a melody there. I've yet to create a song.
Purely instrumental music, or music that's going into a more of a singer-songwriter kind of thing?
Could be both, but I have this dream of writing like a really good vocal melody in Lydian, and I just haven't found it yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I don't think I've probably gone out too far on the sour notes. I think the things that I do that are probably a little quirkier is I tend to write melodies across the bar, which is a bit frustrating for the guys in the band sometimes. But that would be, I think, probably the more like eclectic way that I would take things, as far as instead of using like a really tense notes, I'll tend to write a melody that'll like run across. Like if you're listening to the melody, it's in time, but if you try to play drums with it, or you start to try to play the song, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Yeah. I don't think so, and that might only be because I don't tend to write with overly heavy chord voicings, because I think that directs Barry a little too hard melodically. So I try not to do too much leading like that. And he's gotten to the point now that I think a lot of the times he prefers having like no melodic guitar stuff, or depending, if it's like an old time fiddle tune, obviously there's going to be fiddle and stuff like that on it, like the Gathering stuff. But likes to have like a more of a clean palette to work from, as opposed to having like a lot of creative guitar stuff going on behind it, which very much influences which way he thinks his melody can go.
Yeah.
Then you can go in and put it in after he's written the melody.
I'll put in stuff after. That's a lot trickier than like writing stuff where I can just kind of put in all the cool little ideas that I think I want in there, or it's more just writing for fun for me. But I don't think so. And I'm trying to think if I've even ever really put much of a flat 7 or anything. I think most things that I would do melodically are pretty simple. Like even with like a tune that we had this song called Alcatraz. The intro is like, but the melody part is, let's see. Putting in stuff like that. But that's all still within the the basic harmonic structure of all the chords that it would be sitting over.
But you're really jumping like that octave.
Yeah, that's
it adds such a cool, even though you're using the
I guess what do you guys call the second, a 9?
Mm-hmm.
Then let's see. So I use 11s, so doing the country bends is a little trickier. So it's
yeah, that's nice.
But you got to do that like 1,000 times in the song and have it not. You've had like 3 beers and you're like, oh, please, 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 please. And it sounds better when you really zing it too. So you're like, you go one too far and you're like, ooh.
Do you guys drink much while you play?
Not really. We're pretty lame.
Well, there's sometimes it helps you gel with the crowd, but at least me. But then it quickly turns into sloppiness.
Well, yeah, it's like writing that line. I probably drink the most out of anybody in the band, and I might have a couple of like light beers before the show, but enough to give me enough courage to get on stage and go, okay, I can do, I can play all these things and get it done, but yeah, not every now and then things will get a little carried away. Terry prefers it when I drink heavily, because that's like taking the restrictor plate off the Red Dragon. I get twice the notes in half the time, and stuff can get a little bit more.
Yeah, you go for things that you wouldn't have maybe gone for.
So yeah, well, you have a few drinks and you kind of stop, judging everything that you do while you're doing it. That's a lot to do, is come up with stuff and play it and judge it all at the same time and kick yourself. It's a mighty job. But yeah, so not excessively.
Like,
I wish I had a better story.
It's okay. This has been wonderful. I've had a blast. I think you've been incredibly fun to have on the show. You've got a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first thing like this I've ever done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, man. Well, you guys have a great day, and I'll be in touch.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Carter.
Later, guys.
Yeah, thank you.